Welcome, everybody. It's another episode of Tapped in Sports. I think that's the first time Mav had the pleasure of that crazy intro that includes himself at number 4 in Nick Mullins. Mav, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. How I say it is, I got past Monday, so that's always a blessing. Now this Super Bowl seems like a long time ago, but we're just gonna go ahead and talk about it as far as in relation to how it related to the San Francisco 49ers. First off and foremost, please like the channel, please subscribe and hit your notification so that you know when we are live. I never thought that I would be saying that as a person. I know I saw YouTube videos quite a bit because it's been out for a long time, and I just laugh. I'm like, oh my God, look at those guys saying please like and subscribe. Now I'm doing it myself. Great. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they won Super Bowl 55, and it was not even close. So as far as how it relates to the 49ers is, they had the Kansas City on the ropes. They got the job done. The 49ers didn't. The best thing about that Super Bowl is now we could stop talking about the 20-10 because that seems like irrelevant to talk about anymore. If someone brings it up, you're saying, why the hell are you talking about that Super Bowl? But what did we learn about this past one when we look forward to the 49ers?
I think it once again proved that linebackers are really important. Think of the three teams. You were talking pre-show about the Niners being able to limit the Chiefs relatively, not easily, but being able to limit them. And then Tampa Bay with Devin White and Levante David. And then take it a step even further. And remember, Atlanta did pretty well against Kansas City too. And they have Deion Jones and they have good linebackers. And Raheem Morris runs the same system. So it shows that this system the Niners have can handle the Chiefs if they don't give up a couple third and longs at the end of the game.
Right. And what I think about it when I look from the Chiefs and the 49ers, like I said, I don't want to beat the dead horse because that's way gone now. You're basically in San Francisco, and that game is in Modesto. But with this is I look at it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had one significant drive in the fourth quarter, which the 49ers didn't do in the fourth quarter. I think the 49ers probably could have been Super Bowl champions, but they didn't have that one significant drive. I'm talking about they had 3 first downs. This is the first drive of the fourth quarter. They put up 3 first downs, took off 5.5 minutes off the clock. That's damn near half the damn quarter, half the fight right there. And Brady was 0 for 2 in the entire fourth quarter. I think that a lot of that has to do with the threat of the quarterback being there rather than having Garoppolo back there and the defense is just going to pin their ears back and say, let's go get him because he's not going to beat us in the air. Rather than Brady has proven years over years over years, not just that one game, years over years that he could beat you with his arm. So they didn't have that luxury, the Chiefs, that is, to just stack the box and say, let's just go get him. Also, I think this speaks volumes when it comes to having guys like Nick Bosa on the team. I saw it crazy saying pass rushers don't win championships. Well, they kind of did this game because when you look at the Chiefs O-line, yeah, they were terribly inefficient. Yet that wasn't the first game those guys were starting all season. It wasn't the second game. Their least player to start X amount of games this season was Wisniewski, who only started 3 games this season. And that's a guy who has 106 starts overall in his NFL career this season and started 3 games his whole entire career. That Tampa Bay defensive line is vicious. They did it to the Chiefs, but they also did it to the Packers. They done it to the Saints. It was kind of their MO all season. Vita Vea, the half hand Pierre Paul. There you go. Shaq Barrett. They Ndamukong Suh. They have guys, and the list it goes on. Even Golston off the bench. They have guys, so it shows that you could win with that formula. That's why I think it's. Yeah, is Nick Bosa untouchable? No, because if someone hits you with the right price, you probably take it. But when you're talking about Nick Bosa 2-1 for Deshaun Watson, okay, like, come on, what are we doing here? But also you get Deshaun Watson and you give up Nick Bosa. Then we remembered how this 49ers defense looked against the Bills and Josh Allen tore them up because he was back there building his own house, 3-story house, and Aaron Rodgers did the same thing. So it's still very important to get the pressure. Yes, the franchise quarterback is the number one thing in the NFL in order to succeed, but pass rush is right there as well. It's not too far off.
Well, we know firsthand it's important to this organization at least because they're spending their first round picks on edge rushers and interior guys constantly, and they value that position. It's up for debate on what's the most important position outside of quarterback in the NFL, but I think it's safe to say the Niners value defensive line pretty highly, and that's why I've been saying the whole time. I mean, Bosa's not untouchable, like you said. If it's 1-for-1, Watson and Bosa, I'd seriously consider that. But if you're including first-round picks and Bosa, it makes it hard to believe because then you also have to really re-sign Kerry Hyder, and you have to look at other edge rushers as well. But Bosa is a very important piece, and looking at that Tampa defense, it shows that you can find pass rushers in interesting ways. Shaq Barrett was with Denver, and they let him go because they drafted Bradley Chubb, and then he becomes one of the best pass rushers, probably top 3 pass rusher over the last 2 seasons at least. And Jason Pierre-Paul, the Giants let him walk. They're obviously the off-the-field health issues led to that, but Jason Pierre-Paul's been good, and Ndamukong Suh, like you said. You can rebuild your line through free agency, and that helps.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The one guy that they invested with their own first-round pick was Vita Vea, and that was it. And he's a nose tackle. That's kind of the head scratcher there. It's like, oh, we got these amazing edge rushers, but the one we really invested in was the one tech. Okay. So, but they showed like, yeah, you can get pass rushers in a crazy amount of ways. And it's the same thing with the quarterback's position. So that kind of segues us into the next topic here because it's popular on Twitter at the moment. So how serious, not how serious the 49ers are in, because I don't think anybody knows that current answer unless you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. But how serious should we take the 49ers, Carson Wentz, and Sam Darnold rumors?
I don't fault them for kicking tires on anyone if that's truly what they're doing, just seeing what the price would be. But I don't think it's the scenario where it seemed like the Rams really wanted Stafford and they're willing to pay the price no matter what. Tony, yeah, exactly. It reminded me so much of Justin Smith and Aldon Smith, how Vea and Shaq Barrett were playing, where Vea wasn't getting the tackles, but Barrett was wide open to get all those rushes. That's what that pass rush reminded me of. But anyways, Carson Wentz, I wouldn't pay more than a 5th-round pick for Carson Wentz. I'm not a big Carson Wentz guy, and his locker room stuff bothers me. But Darnold, I know a lot of people don't like Darnold because he's on the Jets, but I truly believe in the post-Gase bump. And if it's a 3rd-round pick or 4th-round pick for Darnold, I'd consider it.
Horacio coming out here, fire for you. I would kind of lean more to Wentz myself. How serious do I take the Wentz and the 49ers, engaging interest? None, quite frankly, because, yeah, when you look to upgrade the quarterback position and you sell to your team, hey, we're moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo for Carson Wentz. That just doesn't sit well with me as far as winning over your locker room, because you could say Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have the locker room now, or you could say he does, whichever side you're on. But when you're looking at the whole fan base, yeah, we're gonna get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and dump him for a guy who got benched in Philadelphia, that hasn't looked good in over a year, and we're going to give up draft capital that's going to make us win that trade. That's going to say, hey, the 49ers are giving us the best offer, so let's move Carson Wentz now. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't take that Wentz rumors any serious. And then looking at Darnold, I think they're more serious into Darnold than they would be into Wentz because he's young. He doesn't have a expensive contract coming up next season. Next season, they could just give him, I guess it depends if he gets a fifth-year option or not. The Jets would have to decide now, or if the 49ers get him very soon, then they would have the chance to decide if they're going to give him the fifth-year option. But this is my concern with Sam Darnold, is I am a big believer that Kyle Shanahan can make his quarterbacks look a lot better than they are. He's done it with Hoyer. When Hoyer was in Cleveland, they were actually in first place before ownership said, get Johnny Manziel on the field. He got Matt Ryan an MVP. He got Schaub into Pro Bowls. He got Jimmy Garoppolo into a Super Bowl. So he elevates the quarterback position. So what concerns me about Sam Darnold is he comes to the 49ers, plays on the last year of his contract. Say that fifth-year option is off the table. He's on the last year of his contract. He balls out, throws 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions because he has that talent level. Is it a talent upgrade over Jimmy? Absolutely. Does it affect the players in that locker room? Maybe, because I don't know if Sam Darnold's a leader. Like we talked about Ryan Tannehill, but Tannehill he got hurt while he was not hurt and he was on the field. He got the Dolphins into the playoffs. They had to go with his backup quarterback, but he got them into the playoffs. Sam Darnold hasn't done that in his young career yet. I don't think the book is written for Sam Darnold. I think he could revive his career because of the Adam Gase effect, like you said. But what concerns me is that he's going to go out there, throw 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and then his agent's going to say, give us $35 million a year, or else we're going to test the market. That's my issue with Sam Darnold. So then now you bring up the question, okay, you have to win the trade as well. So if you're winning the trade, you're giving up probably their second-round pick and then a future third maybe, because I believe there may be some teams to offer a late one this year. So you have to win that trade first. You're giving up valuable assets. And then you're going to have his agent say, hey, give my guy $35 million a year. That's my troubling with Sam Darnold. Is he worth those assets and then $35 million a year? Because we know Shanahan's going to make him look a whole lot better.
I don't really see the purpose in having both Darnold and Rosen. So I wonder if that's part of re-signing Rosen, is including him in some type of deal. Because for me, Darnold, I do like better than Wentz just because, like you said, cheaper and it's a 1 year, 2 year deal. But also my thing with Darnold is when he had Jamison Crowder, he wasn't horrible this season. He was really bad in the games he didn't have Jamison Crowder in when he was on the field. But he had some QB ratings above 80 and above 90 at times, and with Adam Gase and with no running game. Because remember, Frank Gore won that running back job not because he was 2010 Frank Gore, but because Le'Veon Bell couldn't do anything and they had to cut him. And LaMichael P. Ryan got hurt every time he got a carry. So Darnold had a tough season this year. But I agree with what Horatio's saying. Darnold, I think, is not a win-now quarterback, and the 49ers are trying to win in 2021. That's a weird deal to do. I think they're better off rolling with Garoppolo and Rosen than they would be going after Darnold and sacrificing a second-round pick.
Yeah, so it's basically like saying, hey, guys, we know we have a Super Bowl roster, and we know this guy hasn't played at a Pro Bowl level, but hey, it's Adam Gase, guys. Like, he'll be fine. It's Adam Gase. So that's where I have trouble with it. We know Jimmy Garoppolo's limitations, but he's actually able to, they feel confident when he's starting because I don't count QB wins as a thing, as a stat, but you do feel that confidence when he's on the field compared to a Nick Mullins or a CJ Beathard. Obviously, I'm not comparing Garoppolo to those guys because he should never be compared to those guys. But when you're saying, hey, we're going to get off of him for Sam Darnold, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Are we taking a step backward for a project that may or may not work? Are we taking a step forward? We don't know. So it may rub people the wrong way. If it's not a clear upgrade, then I'm going to just say pump the brakes. I don't want to give up more than a day 3 pick on the guy.
Would you swap Garoppolo for Darnold? Like if the Jets are interested, if LaFleur and Saleh are interested?
For a swap, Yeah, I would be interested. I would be interested. Before making that decision, I would have to talk to my guys. I would have to talk to Fred Warner. I would have to talk to George Kittle. I would have to talk to Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, because I don't know. I personally don't know. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan knows where he stands. I personally don't know where he stands. So depending if those guys are like, fuck yeah, we love Sam Darnold's talent. If they say that, then yeah, let's do it. Or if they say, Coach, we're going to ride with you. We believe in you, then I'm going to do it. If they're like, no, we want Jimmy, like, what does that do for us? Like, we'd rather have Jimmy, then I'm going to go with my guys' word on that. Because I do think he can, like, his raw talent is better than Jimmy. Not denying that at all. But raw talent doesn't always translate. We've seen it with plenty of quarterbacks. Raw talent does not always translate. If it did, Jamarcus Russell would still be a Raider, but it doesn't. So that's where I'm going to go with that. I would just, if I'm doing any type of move, I'm going to throw my eggs in the basket for Trey Lance. If I'm doing a project quarterback, I'm going to do a project quarterback that I could have at least 5 years, if you count the 5th-year option, of roster control. Then Darnold, at most, you only have 2 for that project.
Yeah, I with Darnold, what you're saying, the contract situation is interesting. I think he's best suited to go somewhere where he would compete for a job and maybe not necessarily have the Super Bowl pressure, but he gets to sit behind a guy. If New Orleans is able to figure out the situation and get Jameis Winston back and trade for Darnold, or keep Taysom Hill as the starter for the first couple weeks and get Darnold back there and kind of ease him in. I like that situation for Darnold better, but I still think he's the Jets quarterback next year. That's still my prediction.
We'll see. If he is, I would not mind that, because that means one less rookie quarterback is taken off the board. So I would be for all that. Hey, New York Jets, keep Sam Darnold, please. Thank you. And we're just going to seg that way. Like, I told Mav before we started the show today is, hey, I really wanted to name this segment right here, what must the 49ers do in order to get back to the Super Bowl? But I just don't feel like that's very intelligent. Let's get to the damn playoffs first. It's only been once out of 4 years in Shanahan's era. Like I said, I'm a Shanahan believer. I fully believe you get this man a starting capable quarterback, they will be in the playoffs. He's only had that for that 1 year. But with that being said, I can't name this. What can they get back to into the Super Bowl? What must they do this offseason in order to get back to the playoffs?
I think they got to improve their offensive line and just make it tougher. I think that was a big thing with the 2019 team, is even McGlinchey, who I think had a very down year in 2020, he was stronger in 2019 and was able to do those blocks. Mike Person, I thought, wasn't the most perfect right guard. He definitely wasn't a top 15 right guard in the NFL, but he knew the system and it was able to do it right. And same with Richburg and Ben Garland. And then, as we saw, Joe Staley, Justin School, Laken Tomlinson on the left side all had good seasons. And I think that's a big thing with this Shanahan offense, is being able to run the ball. As you were saying in the Super Bowl, when Tampa Bay was able to just go behind their offensive line, where one of those guys was an undrafted free agent that was on the practice squad 9 weeks ago, Aaron Stinney, and they were able to run right behind him, and they were able to run behind Jensen and Marpet and all those guys. The Niners need to get tougher on the offensive line. And with that, I think they're one of the teams to beat, not necessarily the Super Bowl favorite, but just being able to go do what Shanahan wants to do, which is run the ball.
Right. And I think it was ESPN that I saw that's had the 49ers inside their top 10 for the power rankings. The way too early power rankings, the 49ers were at like 9. So I fully believe they can get into the playoffs as long as they have stable quarterback play. But what they must do is, I'm not going to say position group, take accountability. I think that's where this team could take the next step, even when they have guys down, is be accountable. How many times, and I think that fits in well with the offensive line, because a lot of it was Mike McGlinchey. Oh, yeah, the armchair quarterbacks, If you take out those 3 plays, well, some of those 3 plays were fucking huge, my guy. When they were trying to come back to the Eagles and he whipped and CJ Beathard got sacked, or I think it was a pressure. It may not have been technically a sack, but he gave that play away from Brandon Graham. He gave him a free pass. So instead of saying the armchair quarterbacks, take accountability. We need to play better. We need to play better as a team. We're going to get our assignments next week. It's just so weird to me, to where even Trent Williams is the same way. And Joe Staley needs to get in that building for like a week or something, because Joe Staley would have never said just 3 plays. That's 3 plays too much for a guy like Joe Staley. Even Lincoln Tomlinson was the same way. I think this offensive line is going to get a whole lot better based on the personnel, because how I look at it is I'm going to assume they re-sign Trent here. So you re-sign Trent. You have Tomlinson. Give me Mac. If you can't give me Mac from Atlanta that's had Kyle Shanahan, then I would rather re-sign Ben Garland there. And then I want to see Brent Skill with a stapled position. Just have him stapled in there at right guard, and then McGlinchey at right tackle. And also what affects this offensive line is that they're built to run first. They're above 50% or 50% run team. That's how they are built. They're better to attack that way. McGlinchey's not a pass blocker. He's better get him out in space, let him pull, let him knock out some linebackers, off-ball linebackers, or some safeties or corners. That's how they are. This year, they were just behind by so many damn points. They had a pass, and when they had a pass, it made the offensive line look bad. And when the offensive line looked bad, no one took accountability, so they stay bad. They didn't improve because no one made the commitment to say, hey, we're dog shit right now. Let's play better than this.
Yeah, I totally agree with the offensive line being behind. Is they needed to get out early get up early in those games, and sometimes the running game wasn't getting off to the right start, whether it was Jerick McKinnon being the only healthy running back, or it was JaMychal Hasty, who was just not ready to be a lead back. There was a couple issues in those mid games where they had to get out to that early lead. And when you're a struggling offensive line and the pass rushers know you're going to be pass blocking, that's really hard for guys to succeed in. I think McGlinchey was not going to be all pro this year, but I think that did feed into it, and that hurt. But when you're talking about how to fix the line, they have to, in my opinion, either have Trent Williams or Alex Mack on this offensive line next year. They cannot have it be where Laken Tomlinson is the most experienced and Daniel Brunskill is probably the best offensive lineman on the team. They have to get one of those two guys in the building. And if they're able to get both, I think that line goes from one of the worst pass blocking units to probably one of the better ones in the NFL, just because Alex Mack's pre-snap reads, being able to help out Brunskill, which in turn would also help out Laken Tomlinson on his left side. And that just makes this team a whole different level, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with the Alex Mack, because what doesn't get talked about enough is the center has so much communication pre-snap, and this year they had a revolving door at center. Let's try Brunskill, Hronis Grasu, which is your guy from Oregon.
Don't put that evil on me.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
And they've even had Ben Garland for a couple games as well. It was kind of a revolving door, and it looked like, I think Brunskill is a good prospect to this organization from the offensive line standpoint, but I don't think he is fit to play center, just because there's so much brain games that goes along with it. Brunskill was a former tight end turned offensive lineman. So center is completely new to him. He's never played it in his career. And now you're talking about picking up blitz packages from a center position. It's going to be really difficult, and it's going to spell for bad occurrences to continue to happen to this team. So Alex Mack, I'm 100% on board with the Alex Mack train, Alex Mack season, or what do they call it now? Alex Mack's hive. I think that's a new term now. So I'm going with that. I'm fully on board with Alex Mack.
I think they would be, if the offensive line would be at its best if Brunskill's allowed to return to that 2019 six-man role. where if they're able to get a right guard in the draft or a center in the draft and get a right guard, whatever it is, then that makes this line 1,000 times better, because then Brunskill can take over right tackle if McGlinchey struggles. If the right guard who's a rookie is not playing well, if it's McKivitz is not playing well, Brunskill can slide in there. He can play center. We saw him play left tackle a tiny bit last season. And I'm all for having 6 offensive linemen. As we saw with the Chiefs, you need 10 offensive linemen sometimes to be able to get through a whole NFL season. So if they can build that depth where they have 6 capable guys, that'd be huge.
Yeah, and this is fair. Like what Matt said is the 49ers offensive line, they look terrible because they were just solely in pass blocking situations, trying to keep themselves into the game, trying to pass themselves back into the game. And how many times did the 49ers make other teams look that bad in 2019? Quite a bit, pretty often in 2019. So I think that was the effect with the team. That's a great point there. And with Eddie here saying Tristan Wirfs, hindsight 2020, I'm actually going to say the opposite of that. Tom Brady, his entire career, has been able to get the ball out in 2 seconds or less. So I believe Tom Brady makes his offensive linemen look a lot better than they are. I'm not taking anything away from Tristan Wirfs. What he did as a rookie was fantastic. But if he was playing for a Nick Mullins or a CJ Beathard, I don't think he has the year he had. I don't.
Yeah, I think he was still a great draft prospect, but like you said, he probably gets a couple more sacks because, as we saw, Mullins tended to hold on to the ball too long a couple times. Same with Jimmy when he's dancing around against Arizona. That hurts every once in a while, but definitely hindsight 2020, because I wasn't even considering Tristan Wirfs when I was thinking of who the Niners were picking. I was thinking wide receiver all the way at 13, so I was wrong anyways.
Okay, perfect. And then Creed Humphrey. I like Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. You just got to hope he sits there at the second round, because I'm not taking an interior offensive lineman with the first pick, even if I'm trading back. He's someone that should be there in the second round. But that's what I'm looking forward to. I think this offensive line is going to get a whole lot better, just because at least you would hope in 2021 it's going to be different circumstances than 2020. Now, this is going to be my probably favorite part of the conversation, because I don't get to do it too often with the NFL offseason being a little slower with news and not necessarily believing every single thing that I see on Twitter, because a lot of it's just going to be for clickbait and not actual insight. If you're solely looking for 49ers stuff today, that's probably the last segment we're going to talk about the 49ers. But you're also, if you're a San Francisco Giants fan and you want to talk baseball, then hang here with us. As the Giants, I believe it's this week or next week, the pitchers and catchers report. What's your early prediction with the San Francisco Giants? Let's go ahead and look at their projected starting lineup first. This is going to be from Fangraphs. We have the newly acquired Tommy LaStella, Donovan Solano, Mike Yastrzemski, Alex Dickerson, Buster Posey, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, and Mauricio Dubon. Do any of those names scare you if you're a starting pitcher?
I think Mike Yastrzemski was arguably one of the most important players in baseball last year. If he played the full 60 games and the Giants were more in the playoff hunt, I know they were in the playoff hunt till the last day of the season, but if they were a more successful team, I think Yastrzemski would have gotten a couple more MVP votes, because especially mid-season, he was a big guy for them. And my biggest question is, how do they handle the catching situation with Posey obviously coming back after opting out? Do they send Joey Bart down to the minors? They gave Kurt Casale a lot of money to be a backup catcher, and he hits lefties really well. So without a DH, are you going to carry 3 catchers on your roster? That's an interesting conundrum, in my opinion.
Yeah, so what Fangraphs has is they currently don't have Joey Bart on the active roster, and I think that's fair. I think you should get him some more minor league at-bats, and he's probably a guy you call up in May, June. Let him get some swing-ins, let him build his confidence, and then bring him in, because He wasn't. It was just playing scrimmages like before he got called up last season. He knew what these pitchers were pitching when they were pitching it, and it's just a different vibe. You can't really take that stat for stat. I guess you could say what's the exit velocity off the bat. Oh, he's raking it. Then yeah, great. But you can't take it for a game. I'm completely fine with Buster Posey now being back. I'm fine with Joey Bart starting the season, not on the roster, just because I want to see him get his swings in. That's all it has to do. It's not because I don't think he's worthy or deserving. Yeah, they're probably going to have to go with some veteran catcher that's underwhelming, but I want Joey Bart to at least get his 4 at-bats every single game, whether it's in AAA or the MLB. It's probably not going to happen in the MLB since there is not going to be a DH as of now into this season for the Giants, which is kind of shitty because Madison Bumgarner's not even on the team anymore. That gave it that little bit of juice to see the pitcher hit, one out of every other 5 days. But yeah, Mike Yastrzemski, man, like that's the name that has to stand out to you. Donnie Barrels, which is Donovan Solano. I'm excited to see what he can do if he could continue to keep it going. As well as Wilmer Flores. That's a guy I feel like he would have had 20 home runs last season if they played 162 games. So I'm interested to see him if he's able to keep it going. He's had solid years, about 3 years straight. So I have confidence in him. But looking at the rest of this division, the Padres are stacked. The Dodgers are stacked. D-backs have some names. And the Rockies still have Trevor Story. Like, where do they rank in the NL West right now? Because I think they could go as high as 3rd or as low as 5th.
Yeah, I think it's completely contingent on how those 1-year rental starting pitchers they signed play. If Kevin Gausman can pitch like he did last season, then that'd be huge for the Giants. Anthony DeSclafani and Alex Wood as well. Alex Wood was an all-star, I believe, for a year when he was with the Dodgers, and he has the potential to be a solid pitcher. And if Yaz was amazing, that's accurate. Alex Wood and DeSclafani have the potential to have a good season. If they can get their veterans to pitch well, that's big because as we saw last season, the Giants bullpen was not the most reliable thing. But if they get these 1-year starters to give them 7 innings every night, then that limits the amount of time they have to worry about Trevor Gott pitching 2 innings and giving up a grand slam in the 9th, or having to go Yarlin Garcia 5 days a week. They need their starters to go deeper. And I know that's been a problem Kapler has had his first couple of years as a manager, as he tends to yank his pitchers a little early. But maybe I thought he was doing better as the season went on last year, handling his starting pitchers. And maybe that will continue into this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Alex Wood could do. He's someone that I wanted the Giants to get the year before, because he was someone that was under a Farhan system. He's someone that has played well. He's had injuries, so you could get him for cheap. And last year, he only threw for 12 innings, so his ERA was 6.3. I take that for a grain of salt because when you're throwing for that amount of innings, only 12, your next 5 innings could be shutout innings. Next, that 6 ERA is just cut in half to 3. So I'm very interested to see what he can do as a starter standpoint. And they just signed Jake McGee, who was outstanding with the Dodgers last year. He had 33 strikeouts in about 20.1 innings. He is a left-handed reliever, and I think that's something that this team needed badly because their go-to lefty was like Sam Selman last year, who was very inexperienced, what's his name? Yeah, Sam Selman. And so I think that improves this rotation or this back end of the bullpen a whole lot better. And maybe if they had a guy like Jake McGee, they probably don't lose a road game at home against the Padres that essentially knocked them out of the playoffs.
I think having Jake McGee, an experienced lefty at the back end of the bullpen, is huge because think of the division. With the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger, that's a lefty. Corey Seager, that's a lefty. Mookie Betts is a righty, but his numbers were significantly better against righties than lefties last season. And then with the Padres, Eric Hosmer is a big bat in the middle of their lineup. So is Trent Grisham, Trent Grisham's the guy that hit that walk-off home run, I think, in the road home
Yep.
game. So that's another lefty to have Jake McGee face. So that's a big signing. I think that's a good one. And he has closing experience. So why not get your bullpen better? Because that's what I think killed the Giants last year. They probably would have made the playoffs if they had a Mark Melancon, still under contract, or another guy that could consistently close out games.
And they're also getting back Reyes Maranta, who was a big part of this team before he got hurt. Even if they had him last year, they probably could have made a run, at least steal one of those games from the Padres, or they don't give up that other late inning lead against the Rockies before that Padres series. So I think that they can be in the mix for maybe a last wild card spot if they decide to expand the playoffs again, which I thought was fantastic. I loved seeing the expanded playoffs. Yeah, it's not always one of those things where it's like, oh, this so many teams made the playoffs. That's the only reason why they made it. No, let's make it like the NBA. Let's get as many teams in as possible. And it wasn't like with baseball; these playoffs didn't drag through. As we have right here saying "Go Dodgers." That's my thing is when you have an expanded playoffs, you're making this more competitive for the teams like the Dodgers or the Rays or the Yankees. So once you get to that World Series, it's much more exciting because you saw a full a la carte menu throughout the playoffs. It wasn't just an appetizer and now you're in the World Series.
100%. And I think the detractors to the expanded playoff are saying they'll let a lot of pretenders in and it'll be a waste of time. But we got the Marlins in the playoffs last year and they were able to get rid of the Cubs, who I think a lot of people thought were pretenders. And you get the Marlins in and they offered a lot more excitement. The A's and the White Sox had a great series, and then we still got an A's-Astros postseason series. And it still ended up being Rays-Astros and Dodgers-Braves. And those were probably the 4 best teams in baseball last season. So it's not like it completely shifted the tides of the postseason, but it added a lot more excitement getting to see Toronto still fighting to make the postseason. Or like you said, the Giants were in it till the very end. And just getting to fight for the playoffs added excitement for the last 2 weeks of the season. Who wants to watch the Royals and the Tigers play for 2 weeks when they're 30 games out of the playoffs? That's pointless. But if there's still a chance to get that 8th spot, that game becomes a lot more exciting.
Oh yeah, even for parlay reasons. Let me throw some money on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's see. You're an A's fan, correct?
I watch both teams, but I grew up an A's supporter.
Okay. So I'm gonna give my guy because right here he's saying that the Dodgers. He's a big Dodgers fan, but he loves Yaz. Just hates the fact that he's a Giant. So I'm gonna give my guy. My guy is going to be Fernando Tatis Jr. I love watching him play. He's must-see TV every single at bat. You just have to see that kid play because it could be some amazing bat flip at post, afterwards. And he could go yard on any single pitcher. So that's a great thing about seeing Tatis play. Even on the field, that boy's got a glove. I know it's ugly to the analytics early on in his career, but I don't care. He could field anything and makes it look easy. But for yourself, who's a team that you don't like? Not necessarily I don't dislike the Padres because I've always seen them as like our little sisters. Just the Dodgers, the one I was like, you guys are always at us, going for the division. But who's that team that you just don't want to see win the division, but you really like a player on that team?
Well, just touching on Tatis before is I remember his rookie year. They were playing the Pirates on just some nobody day, some midweek 12:30 game, and he was on third base with 1 out, and whoever's up hits a pop fly to the shortstop, and I'm like, oh dang, he's not even going to get a chance to tag up, and he tags up on a pop out to the shortstop and was safe. And at that moment, I was like, this guy's going to be amazing because just that's Billy Hamilton speed and being able to score from third. He's an exciting guy to watch. But if I have to pick someone I hated, before the cheating scandal was Altuve because I didn't like the Astros. But now with all that stuff coming out, I stay with the Astros. But Michael Brantley, who's just a contact machine, he hits a double every time he's up. I think against the A's, every time he's batting, he hits an opposite field double down the left field line. And I wanted the A's to just throw all of their money at him this offseason. But now that he's back and the A's obviously aren't spending any money ever, Brantley's my guy. That every time he's batting, I think something bad's going to happen for the A's.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Brantley, he's one of those guys. He doesn't have Tony Gwynn numbers, but I would say at least to a more realistic, because Tony Gwynn is unrealistic in what he did in his career. Like, it's probably never going to happen again. So he's a more realistic, everyday person that hit closest to Tony Gwynn, as to where that guy could just go for any season and go for 330 rather than Tony Gwynn would go for like 390. But you get what I'm saying here. It's just that
professional
guy
hitter.
Yeah, he's a professional hitter. He could just get on base. Doesn't matter who's on the mound.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy about it. I'm not really much of those guys that like to see 210, but with 25 home runs. That just means I'm seeing you strike out a whole lot.
Yeah.
But hey, I appreciate you. Do you want to have any last minute messages here?
Well, just for the Giants, I think the most exciting thing is the minor leagues, and so just keep up with if Joey Bart's down there, keep up with what he's doing. Alexander Canario and Luis Matos and the shortstop Marco Luciano. There's some exciting guys that you should watch.
Yeah. Like, the Giants are probably going to tap out at best. Like, literally their ceiling would be third place. But what they have building is so amazing. Marco Luciano, I can't wait to see that guy play. I'm basically saying right now that, like, yeah, Tatis is my favorite player to watch in all of MLB. He's going to be the Giants version of Fernando Tatis, and I'm very, very excited to see that. I was kind of bummed because I was looking at the top 100 prospects, and I saw that they dropped Seth Corey, left-handed starter, out of there, and I think that kid has some potential too. The prospects, they got hit with the COVID season, so a lot of them didn't even play. And it just sucks because now that trajectory is basically a year behind.
100%, but check out some River Cats games, so they'll all be
there
good.
You go.
Yeah.
Mav, if they want to find your stuff, where can they go?
My Twitter is @MavPallack, and I mostly tweet dumb stuff about the Niners or the A's or SpongeBob memes, and then I try to keep most of my baseball stuff on my baseball blog @Baseball Sports, baseball spelled BAYSEBALL Sports, and I tweet Giants and A's stuff. I tried to do a gamer after every game last season, which was luckily it was a 60-game season for both, so that made it easier. But yeah, if you want to check me out on that, I try to interact as much as I can.
Okay, perfect. There you go, guys. Thank you for hanging along. I know a lot of you guys come here for 49ers talk. With the offseason, I want to give you guys content, and I'm sure a lot of you are fans of the sport. Well, baseball, that is. Whether you're Giants fans, Dodger fans, Padre fans, whatever it may be, we're all in the same division, so whatever we're going to be talking about is going to be pretty relevant. And I'll do my best not to hate on any other team in division, because I'm going to be respectful that you guys are pretty good and we're not right now. So if you guys want to check out Mav stuff, once again, it is baseball, BAY ball. So go ahead and check them out there. Find them on Twitter @MavPallack, spelled out right there. I appreciate you guys staying on with us. Have a great one.